I want to go through now, hopefully until Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur time, a few of the critical questions regarding giving charity. And I don't want to call it a halachic shir. You can ask your rabbi that. But really to deal with some of the more pressing questions that people ask, that bother them, and I think will give us a lot of clarity. I was away on holiday, and I was learning the Geris Agra. The Geris Agra is a letter that the Vilna Gaon wrote to his family. He left his family to go live in Eretz Yisrael, and he left instructions to his wife how to run the home while he was gone, how to educate his daughters, his sons, what to do with their money, how to treat his mother, a whole lot of guidelines to ensure that the household ran well. It's an incredible letter. The reason why I like it is because it's actually written in a way that you can understand. Most of the Gra is so cryptic you can't actually know what's going on there, for me anyway. But this is written as a letter to his wife, and it's beautiful. And I want to share with you one piece from there today. Perhaps in the coming shares I'll share with you a bit more. But he writes the following thing regarding charity. He says, Uleman Hashem, for Hashem's sake, shetafrish es achoymesh kasher tzivisicho. You should set aside a fifth of your income for charity, like I've instructed you. 20%. V'al tifchois kasher hizarticha, and don't go less than that, like I've warned you. Ki bepochois mizeh, if you dip below 20% in your charity, oivrim kol rega al kama lavim v'asin. You transgress every moment, many negative commandments and many positive mitzvahs you're neglecting. How's that? For anyone who knows a little bit about charity, that's shocking what he wrote there. We have quite clear guidelines in the Shulchan Aruch. We're going to learn them again together today. But the Shulchan Aruch lays down 4 levels of giving charity. And he says if you're a generous, the best, he says, if you've got the means, you should alleviate poverty. Your obligation is to give away as much as you can to alleviate poverty if you know you're not going to be needy of the money. Level 1. Level 2, he says you should give 20%, and he calls that generous. If you average, you should give 10%, and if you're dirt stingy, you give less than 10%. Those are the 4 levels that the Shulchan Aruch gives. But he never ever said that you do an aveira if you give less than 20, or that there's positive mitzvahs in the Torah which you're neglecting if you don't give 20. Now, the Vilna Gaon never elaborates in the letter exactly what he means. But what was clear was that the way that he ran the household, and I don't think the Vilna Gaon came from a wealthy place, that he had lots of money flowing around. You can see from the letter it wasn't like that. But every bit of income that they had, it was rule in the Vilna Gaon's home, that's what we gave. I've warned you always. I've always told you that's what we do. 20% and never give less, because he held that it's impossible, that you can't be transgressing negative commandments and positive commandments if you don't give your 20. Now, it doesn't mean that he held that you made a mistake in tzedaka. He knew the Shulchan Aruch very well. But the other mitzvahs of the Torah, as a byproduct of not giving your 20, that you would be neglecting the poor, tightening your fist to those people who actually really need, wasting your money when there's other people around you who are actually in desperate poverty. There was many mitzvahs which you were going to be neglecting if you don't give your 20%. And then he says, V'shokul ki'ilu, if you don't give 20, it's as if kofa b'Torah kadosha chas v'sholem. You've denied the whole holy Torah that we have, chas v'sholem. Bam! Like that's wow. Okay? Now that part I do understand. Because there's a profound statement I think that the Vilna Gaon saying. He says if you don't give 20, it's as if you denied the entire Holy Torah. Why? You keep Shabbos, you keep kosher, keep all the mitzvahs, you wear tzitzis, you daven every day. You didn't deny any of the mitzvahs of the Torah. You do it all. Yeah, but you don't really believe any of it, he says. Because the Torah says to you, if you give charity, Hashem will bless you financially. If you really believe it, and you really want to be blessed financially, why wouldn't you give it away? Because you don't believe it. You don't believe it, he says. If you don't give the 20% away, you at your core, practically you may keep the mitzvahs, but at your core, you've denied the fundamentals of the Torah, which is Hashem keeps his word. And what he says, he does. And if you want to be looked after financially by God, he says, give away 20%. So why on earth wouldn't you do that? The only reason why you wouldn't do that is if you don't believe. That's what it is. If you don't give 20%, if you don't push the upper limits of what halacha allows you to give in charity, says the Vilna Gaon, it's as if you denied the whole Torah. It's at the core of it. You're just a robot keeping instructions, but you don't really, really believe. If we press you deep and hard, you don't really believe that Hashem will keep his word. And so those were his parting instructions from his wife to his wife. Whatever you give, whatever you get, make sure you give 20%. That's the greatest indicator, one of the indicators that you truly believe in Hashem's Torah. And he says if you go below that, so you be transgressing many mitzvahs of the Torah. Okay. So one of the guys sitting here in the shir came up to him and was very dejected because we've spoken a lot about giving 20% in this year, and he went to ask a very well-known rabbi about giving 20%, and the rabbi told him, no, you don't have to worry about it, I'll hold you, give 10%. Okay, well the Vilna Gaon says 20, so I say no one trumps the Vilna Gaon. You know, that for me is, anyone who tells you otherwise, you tell them, but you're arguing on the Vilna Gaon. I'm saying he says you don't believe in the Torah if you don't give 20%. You're breaking assays and lois assays, and then they'll start scrambling and they'll tell you, no, Rav Moshe says if you knew what. Okay, you ask Rav Moshe what he held about the Vilna Gaon. Okay, there's what to talk about here. Anyway, all I want to do is just to push the limits a little bit for you guys, to tell you that there's a big person out there. The way he ran his home was that he pushed his family, despite their financial position, to give 20%, because at the core of it, it's a revelation that you truly believe in Hashem's mitzvahs. Now, what I'd like to go through today, there's a very interesting Gemara. It also came out of this letter to of the Vilna Gaon. It began my little bit of research in it. There's a very wealthy Amora. His name was Mar Ukva. And it's a Gemara in Ksuvas, Samech Zayin Amud Beis. And the Gemara relates there the unbelievable things that Mar Ukva did for charity. Okay, the lengths that he went to give his money away. He would go on a weekly basis and drop money at a certain person's house and then knock on the door and run away, so I'd never know who he was. One time he went with his wife, and the person was waiting for the knock at the door because he wanted to find out who it was. And as the person was about to open the door, him and his wife, the Gemara says, jumped into a furnace. I don't know what all these things mean 100%, but you'll get the message. And the Gemara says that his legs started to singe in the fire, but his wife's didn't. And he got very upset that she had more protection than he had in the fire. And she said to him, the reason is because we're both generous, but you give money and I give ready-made food. And so when I give the food, the poor person can eat it straight away. You give the money, he says to go, buy the food, cook the food. It's a process before it actually solves his problem. And therefore, I was afforded extra protection here. Okay, another story that the Gemara brings. Then the Gemara says that Mar Ukva was about to die. I'll read it, I'll just say it outside. I'm not going to read it inside, actually. Mar Ukva was on his deathbed. And it says, the Gemara says that he called for his book, his charity book, where he wrote down all the charity that he gave out in his life, which in itself is fascinating, that you see kept a record. Everything was recorded, how much he earned, how much he gave away in a book. let's see, the Gemara says it's his chushbanai de tzedaka, his tzedaka calculation book. And he read the book, and it says that he'd given away 7,000 of these silver coins, these dinarim. Don't know how relatively what that was, but he calculated over his lifetime what he'd given away. And then the Gemara says, he said, my preparations are light and my journey is a long one. And he immediately gave away half of the money that he had remaining. Okay? So the Meforshim explain that he said his journey is long. And this I can never fathom this. It's just I'm too optimistic for my own well-being. But Mar Ukva says that his journey is long. He said he means he's got a long way to get to Gan Eden, and he's not sure if he's done enough to get there. Mar Ukva, he wasn't sure, petrified that the moment's coming, that his life's coming to an end now, and he's not sure. There's a long way, and there's a long shot that he's going to actually make it to Gan Eden, and his preparations to get there are light. And so he immediately gave away half of his remaining wealth to charity in order to prepare their way better, because the Gemara says that charity saves a person from Gehenna. It's one of the best protectors a person has, that you won't get judged according to the letter of the law for the things that you've done, and that's what he did. Is a dispute in the Gemara if we gave away half, we gave away a third, but we'll go with half for now just for clarity's sake, otherwise it's going to get confusing. The Gemara says, how could he halachically do that? We know that there's Rabbi Eli, they made a takana in Usha, that a person who wants to give generously to charity, you're not allowed to give more than 20%. He gave half. So Gemara lays down an unbelievable principle and says as follows: Hani mili mechaim. The cap which the sages put on a person not giving more than 20% is only whilst you're alive. Shema yered min achosov. Maybe you'll lose your assets and you'll need the money and you would have given it away, and then you'll become dependent on the community, and the sages didn't want that. Aval la'acha misa. But after you've dead, and there's nothing to worry about, that you're going to become dependent anymore on the tzibur, leis lan ba, the sages say, we have no say in this matter. It's at your discretion. And therefore, Mar Ukva could do whatever he wanted with the money, because he knew the moments were coming that he was going to pass away, and there's no chance that him giving it away now would make him dependent on the tzibur. Good. What about his family? Not his problem. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's see. What about his family? Okay, that's what we're going to discuss, and we're going to get into. So I want to just share with you the Shulchan Aruch, so just so that everybody has the baseline halacha very clear. A fascinating piece, really. It says as follows in Reish Mem Tes. You got everyone following? Guys, are we good? Is this shocked silence, or is this, I'm not sure. Okay, so the Shulchan Aruch, just as out of interest, leaves out that Gemara, and so does the Rambam. And the Meforshim are at a bit of a loss for words. Why would they say the Shulchan Aruch omitted it and the Rambam omitted that Gemara? Okay, we'll see. But this is what the Shulchan Aruch writes: Shi'ur nesinosa im yadim aseges, the amount that a person should give if you have the means. Yitain kafi tzorech ha'anim. You should give whatever the poor people need. Alleviate poverty. That's your obligation. V'im ein yadam aseges kol kach. And if you're not such a wealthy person, it means there's a chance that you're going to need the money that you're giving away. Don't do it. Yitain ad choimish nechosav mitzvah min hamuvcha. You should give 1/5 of your possessions away as your first prize. That's the best way to do this mitzvah. And 1 tenth, 10%, average. Pachos mikan, less than 10%, ayin ra'ah, stingy. That's the Shulchan Aruch's parameters. So anybody tells you to do 10%, which is fine, just tell them, okay, are you accept mediocrity in every other area of your life? You're happy with mediocrity. In your kashrus, you're happy with mediocrity. Keeping Shabbos, you're happy with mediocrity. In your business, mediocrity. As a parent, mediocrity. Charity, delighted with mediocrity. No, I feel like a tzaddik to be mediocre because you're stingy and you don't believe in the Torah. That's just simple. If you believe in the Torah, there's no ways you wouldn't give 20% because Hashem promises you're never going to lose and you're going to get back, fivefold what you're going to give away. Well, why wouldn't you give it away? Because you don't believe and you're stingy. Okay, anyway, those are the parameters. Now, the Ramah says, V'lo yevazvez adam yoseh mechomesh. Don't give more than 20%. Shelo yitztarech lebrios, in order that you shouldn't be dependent on other people. V'dafka kol yemei chayev. That's specifically speaking about while you're alive. Aval b'shas moiso, but at the moment that a person's dying, yochol adam yiten tzedaka kol ma sheyirtzeh. You can give whatever you want to charity. It's uncapped, unlimited, and Mar Ukva paved the way well for himself and gave half of it away. Okay, so there are more paskins like that Gemara. Your cap is 20% in your lifetime, but when you know that death is imminent, then we have the sages never got involved, and you're allowed to give whatever you want away. Now, the Chochmas Adam, which came much later, more recent Poisek, okay, in times of just before the Mishnah Brura, he says as follows: that where there's a prohibition to give more than 1/5 of your possessions away to charity, dafka b'chayav, that's only talking about in your lifetime. Aval b'shas moisoi, but at a time when a person's dying, yochol adam liten tzedaka kol ma sheyirtzeh, you can give to charity all that you want. How's he paskening? Like the Ramah, like we would expect. Umikol mokim, nearly, however he says, it seems to me, it's not right to give all your money away to charity at the time a person's dying and to leave your children with nothing if they need it for their livelihood. Just a point that the Chochmas Adam puts in. He says, even though the sages never got involved at that point in a person's life, and you can literally do whatever you want, but doesn't sit well that a person would give it all away to charity and leave children who actually need the money neglected. That doesn't sit well. Point one, he says. And then he says, after he wrote that, he says, Achshav matzati b'sheiltus to Rav Achai. Rav Achai was a Gaon, so he was, before the Rishonim, one of the most authoritative people after the Gemara. I think it's one of the first books that we have of a Gaon after the Amoraim. And he wrote, Sof Parshas Kisiso, Ahad Mevazbed, on this Gemara, which we've learned that you're not allowed to give more than 1/5, and that's only talking about whilst you're alive, but after you've dead, Leis Land Ba. His Girsa says, Aval la'acha misa tilta. After you died, 1/3. V'chein hilchasa, and that's the halacha, that's what he wrote. So he says he found in the writings of Rav Achai that it was a slight variant on our Gemara. Our Gemara says, Leis lan ba, we don't mind what you do. We have no say after your death. And in the Rav Achai, he says, after death, 1/3, 33%. Okay? So, and the Chochmas Adam says, he knows our Girsa says, Leis lan ba. Ours says, there's no say at all, which sounds like the way the Ramah brought it down. You can do whatever you want. So then he's got, are we following so far? I don't want to make it confusing. We've got a Gemara which says, the sages say, Leis lan ba, we have no say in the matter after death. That is what the Ramah brought down lahalocha. Rav Achai in the Sheiltos, he says that the version is, after death, 1/3. Now there's another version that says, after death, 1/2. Okay? But now the Chochmas Adam, I can just say it outside for lack of confusion, he's got a question on the Gemara. And the question on the Gemara is, if the sages have no say in what happens after you're dead, why didn't Mar Ukva give it all away? And because of that, it seems that the She'iltos, Rav Achai, when he brings down this halacha, he brought down the halacha in line with what Mar Ukva did. Let's leave it at a half, okay? It says a third, a half, does that told that was a machlokas. But even though the sages have no say, and you can do what you want, still Mar Ukva only gave half away. And therefore, Rav Achai said, after a person dies, you can give away 50% of what you've done, based on what Mar Ukva did. So the Chochmas Adam says, how does the Ramah learn the Gemara? The Gemara says we have no say in the matter, but then why didn't Mar Ukva give away more? So he says, the Ramah must have learned the Gemara as follows. The Mar Ukva lo rotze litan yosem machzis. It's just a personal choice. The Gemara never said, after you die, you must give it all away. It just said, after you die, you do what you want. What did Mar Ukva calculate was the right thing, balancing his family's needs and his needs to prepare for Olam Haba? Half. And he gave half. But it's totally flexible. You must make responsible calculations for it. On that, the Chochmas Adam says, I feel it's not responsible to leave your children in need. In that for sure should be taken care of first. And then the rest you could give away. But he says the Shiltus does actually give a cap even for a person after their death at a third or a fifth. And now the Chochmas Adam says as follows. That because of Shah Magor and Rav Yeshaya Berlin, Ilu Ra Ramah Divra Shiltus, had the Ramah seen this work of Rav Achai, Vada Haya Kosev Kain, he for sure would have capped it at, let's call it half. He wouldn't have left it as a totally blank thing. But the Ramah, they claim, never saw Rav Achai, and therefore he left it as our Girsa has it as a totally open check. You can do whatever you want. So just to summarize, the Shulchan Aruch says in a person's lifetime, if you're an exceptionally wealthy person, alleviate poverty. If there's a chance you're going to be needy of the money that you're giving away, then your cap is 20%. That's generosity. 10% is average, less than 10% is stingy. The Ramah says that cap to give 20% is only whilst you're alive. But at the time that a person's dying, you can give whatever you want away. That is the baseline halacha. The Chochmas Adam says, I don't think you should neglect your children at that time. And had the Ramah seen the Rav Achai's writing, I think he would have capped it at 50% like Rav Achai did, or a third. He would have left it at that. So I want to just share with you my own personal experience. I actually went to Rav Sternbuch and I asked him both of these questions. I wanted to know if a person can give away more than 20% of their money in their lifetime, and also how much you can leave in your will to charity. And he shocked me. First of all, he said, in your lifetime, you can definitely give more than 20%, and you should, he said. And he quoted, afterwards I found out, it's a moshel from the Baal Tanya. The Baal Tanya says, if you've got a sickness and you want to get it cured, would you go to the government doctor or would you pay for private? He says, if you're really sick, you'll pay whatever it takes to get that sickness cured. You'll go to the best doctors. You'll pay the best price. He says, charity is the best cure for Averis, and you're ridden with them. He says, if you're a tzaddik, you shouldn't give more than 20%. But if you're ridden with Averis, this is the best medicine for the cure for Averis, for a person to cleanse you, and you should pay the best price. You should go above 20%. If you're a person who's not squeaky clean in your Averis. That was his first thing. Even an average person, he says, shouldn't worry to give a little bit more than 20%. For sure, a wealthy person should give much more than 20% away, because it's the ultimate atonement and kapara for your Averis. So that was one. So the first thing that he broke for me was that the 20% cap, you can go to, don't be so strict about that. Go a bit above, it'll be good for you. That was his first point. And then he said, in your will, don't leave more than 20% to charity. So I thought, look, Rav Sternberg. But I know the sources here. No one says that. Nobody says that. They either say you can give it all, or a third is like the least I've ever seen, or a half. He said, don't go above 20%. Now, you understand, these are not halachas, these are like, they're advice. You can do what you want. He said, don't go above 20%. I never had the opportunity to press him a little bit further. It's what, So that I left with that paradigm. When you're dead, you can't give more than 20. When you're alive, you give as much as you want. As long as you won't be dependent, keep going. And it really troubled me because it didn't sit with what I'd known from the Shulchan Aruch. But it started the most profound internal work for me to trying to actually process how would I live my life following his advice. And I'll tell you what came out as follows. In the interim, I'd read a letter. Warren Buffett wrote a letter. He's always his letters that he writes, but this letter was a letter a lot about inheritance and bequeathing money to children. Now, and I'll just tell you the gist of it. In the gist of it, he holds that you should hold your money till you die, because if you're an investor, you make the most money in your latter years because the capital is bigger and therefore the return is bigger. So you can't give the money away then. That's like the pinnacle of your life is when the real fund is built up and you're now earning 20% returns on that. That's like your biggest year of your life. So you don't give it away till the end. And so he's writing this letter. He's held on to everything basically. In his world, he's giving it a little bit now here and there, scraggles around to the Bill Gates Foundation, whatever. But now he's got children left. His children are in their late 70s. But they don't need it. They don't need the money. So now he's left with this big pile of gold, and he's just going to give it to some foundation to distribute as they wish. That's the most wasted life I've ever seen in my whole life. He was the most talented businessman the world saw. He knew how to identify talented people. He saw opportunities. He built organizations, operations. If he had deployed that capital, you know what he could have done in this world? Now he's got a pile of gold that he's dumped on somebody else, and who knows what they'll do with it. Most of it they'll probably squander on their yachts and their airplanes, and they'll give a little bit to charity, and his whole life was a waste. But with Rav Sternberg's recipe, he says, look, when you die, I can tell you this, and I'll tell you this agonizes me. When you die, what you give away, it's lazy money. It's the money that you never had a chance in your lifetime to give away. Because who knows what's going to be with that charity? I've seen myself in organizations. You can have a great organization which does unbelievable work, and then the leader changes, and all of a sudden the organization goes left field, pear-shaped. So you left all your money to this wonderful yeshiva, which has done unbelievable stuff in your lifetime, and the day after you die, the Rosh Yeshiva dies, and this oak takes over, who's an absolute lunatic, and blows all the money. That is a very realistic thing that could happen. Even when you think of leaving whatever to your family, people, no one will be able to manage the money the way you were able to manage it when you were alive. And Hashem gave it to you, every single one of you gave you the money that you earn on a monthly basis and that you have saved, because He believed in your business acumen and in your sensitivity to people and in your identification of the needs in the world, to deploy it in a way which is totally unique to you. And only you will be able to deploy it that way. After you're dead, no one will be able to replicate your way and your interest and your causes of giving charity away. And so for me, Rav Sternberg he changed my life, because he said, take the money that you have. In your lifetime, you can go way over 20. You take the money with your kindness, with your business skill, with your assessment of what's important in the world and your values, and deploy it as generously as you can, because after you're dead, no one's going to be able to do that. And then in your will, 20% is a cap. You give that to charity, let them give that to organizations that you've been supporting or people you've been supporting while you're alive, and the rest leave for your children. So I think we're going to carry on a little bit more. I want to discuss a little bit more about inheritance and leaving for children, because the Vilna Gaon has a lot to say about that as well. But for me, what this whole process, and especially the conversations of Shtomach did, it created an onus to accompany with your charity your own personal life interest, values, and skills, and not to be lazy and leave it in the bank account for somebody else to deal with that burden after you've died. Look forward to carrying on next week.